A message appeared at just the right moment. Ping. You may give names to shadow soldiers who are knights or higher in rank. Names will stay until the shadow is released. Please choose a name. Jinwoo was confused by this unexpected request. But then he smiled with relief because he remembered this creature already had a name. Continuing to use it shouldn't be a problem. The message flashed as if urging Jinwoo to call the soldier's name. He opened his mouth. Igris the Blood. Wait a minute. Jinwoo would have to refer to the knight by whatever name he chose, which meant having to call Igris by his full name whenever he needed him. Just thinking about it made Jinwoo shudder. That was way too cheesy. In the end he decided to keep the name simple. Igris. Would you like to use Igris? Sure. As soon as Jinwoo answered, the question marks above the knight's head turned into his name. Igris LV. 7 knight rank. Even though Jinwoo was reusing his minion's old name, he felt proud of what he had just done. Jinwoo felt like Igris belonged just to him. It was as if Igris was his very own soldier. Jinwoo turned around. 29 other shadow soldiers were waiting for his commands. Even with 30 soldiers it still felt like a small group. Maybe this was because he wasn't very skilled at using shadow extraction yet. Or perhaps he needed to become smarter. One thing was certain, his power would only get stronger. He had a real army. It wasn't an army of skeletons or rotting bodies, but an army of shadows. Now there was just one problem left. How could he move around with these shadowy figures? The thought gave Jinwoo a big worry. Whether they were skeletons or shadows, Jinwoo would definitely stand out walking down the street with them. This was beyond what someone with special powers could handle. He would be watched all the time, or worse, they might demand he get rid of his army. Jin Shol-woo, the leader of the Hunters Association's surveillance team, would come by every day, causing trouble. Just thinking about it made Jinwoo frustrated. That was probably why he had another skill. Jinwoo opened the skills menu. Job exclusive skills, active skill, shadow extraction. LV. 1. Shadow storage. LE. 1. Shadow storage, a skill he had looked at before, but not really understood. It was clear from the name that this would be exactly what Jinwoo needed. Shadow storage LV. 1. This was a skill only for his job. It didn't require any mana. Jinwoo could store shadow soldiers by absorbing them into his own shadow. He could call them back or pull them back whenever he wanted. The number of shadows stored Sarah's 20. I knew it, Jinwoo thought to himself as he nodded. He thought the skill might let him store things because that's what the name suggested. But there was something unexpected. He didn't realize how many he could keep. The most shadows he could hold was fewer than what he could make now. He had taken care of 30 of them but could keep only 20. This meant he needed to let go of 10 more. The pain felt the same, no matter which choice he made. It hurt to say goodbye to even one, but now he faced an even harder choice. He had to decide which 10 would stay and which 10 would go. Jinwoo's heart ached as he looked at his soldiers. Igris, who had the rank of knight, was spared along with 3 special mage soldiers. The regular soldiers were the ones in danger. Jinwoo had let the closest soldier go last time, so this time he chose the 10 at the back. He felt sorry for them, and hoped they would rest in peace. In an instant they turned to dust and disappeared. It did not bother him as much as before. Maybe saying goodbye becomes easier over time. Jinwoo looked at his last rankings one more time before using shadow storage. The soldiers faded like ice, turning into shadows and gathered around his feet. Then they were absorbed into my shadow. As explained, the soldiers spread into Jinwoo's own shadow. Everything ended so fast. His army disappeared completely. It was hard to believe even though I saw it with my own eyes. He looked at his shadow with amazement. Then, like the system was waiting, several chimes sounded. Ping. You have tested all your special job skills. You have finished the job change quest. The exit gate will appear soon. Finally, it's over. This journey was long and tough. Jinwoo took one last look at the dungeon. He felt filled with emotion. Signs of hard battles were everywhere. There were crushed knights, broken walls, and a fallen pillar. The iron golem that had knocked over the pillar was now just a pile of scrap metal, but he was rewarded well for his struggles here. He had gotten a new job, learned new skills, formed a strong army, and collected many useful items. He smiled without turning around and walked away from the dungeon. The gate to freedom welcomed him like it was celebrating his safe return. As he stepped through, everything around him changed in an instant. Jinwoo was back on the empty hill where he had accepted the special task. It was 5 a.m., almost sunrise. Jinwoo groaned when he saw the time. If I had known it would take so long, I would have told Gina beforehand. Luckily there were times when he used to come home late, because missions took longer than expected when he worked for the association. He looked over his shoulder. The gate Jinwoo had just left was gone, as if it never existed. He looked at the empty space and wondered. It felt like he'd been in a strange place until now, almost like a weird dream. But this wasn't just a dream. Jinwoo thought about his soldiers in their black armor. As soon as he did, they came out of his shadow. At first he had thought of them as monsters. Shadow soldiers, beasts that walked out of the shadows of the dead when he called. But if they were monsters, what would one call the person who created and controlled them? Jinwoo smirked. I guess they can call me whatever they like. Jinwoo remembered the shadows. His steps were light as he walked down the hill. Jinwoo slept until late in the afternoon. Since the sun had already risen when he went to bed. This made sense. His phone rang loudly, breaking through his sleep. He felt around until he found it under his pillow. Jinwoo answered without opening his eyes. Hello. His voice sounded tired. Wow. Are you still sleeping? Do you know what time it is? Gina's voice was full of surprise over the phone. He replied. What time is it? It's 2 in the afternoon. What? He looked at his screen to check. It was true. You remember we have a parent-teacher meeting today, right? She sounded worried. Jinwoo slowly stood up. Hey, when is everything happening? Sooner than you think. No worries, I've got your back. Aw damn, thanks. Just a heads up, let me know when you're on your way, okay? She said with a smile before they hung up. Scratch scratch. Jinwoo rubbed his messy hair, and slowly stood up. He needed to get moving, or he'd be late. This was about his little sister after all. Her teacher for the big school meeting. The one in charge of her final year at school. This was a very important time in Gina's education. Jinwoo knew he couldn't just wear anything ordinary. He opened his closet to pick out an outfit but was met by a smell that wasn't fresh. That wasn't good. Jinwoo made a face and kept looking through his clothes. The only decent outfit he could find was the old suit he'd worn once to his high school graduation. Does this still fit? Jinwoo tried on the suit, and just as he thought, it was too tight and hard to move around in. I'm definitely bigger now. It was even more noticeable when he wore these old clothes. Jinwoo was trying to decide what to wear when he saw some bank statements and a checkbook on the table. These were from Jinyo, and they showed the money made from selling essence stones. He glanced between the tight clothes he was wearing and the official papers, and a smile spread across his face. It had been a while since he went shopping. Before he went shopping, though, there was one small task he needed to finish first. Jinwoo took off his tight suit and sat on the edge of the bed. He then called up the stat window. A long list of words appeared in front of him. King. His name was Jinwoo Sung. His job was Shadow Monarch. He had 1135 HP and 122 MP. His level was 51. He also had a title called Wolf Assassin, and another one that wasn't shown. His physical damage was reduced by 46%. His stats were Strength 32, Stamina 91, Agility 111, Intelligence 70, Perception 93. He had 10 available ability points. For skills he had passive skills like Unknown, at max level Willpower level 1, and Advanced Dagger Wielding level 1. His active skills included Dash level 2, Murderous Intent level 1, Fatal Strike level 1, Dagger Throw level 1, and Stealth level 1. He also had job-exclusive skills, like Shadow Extraction level 1, and Shadow Storage level 1. His equipped items were Crimson Knight's Helmet, which was Grade's Warden's Collar, Grade A High-Rank Knight's Chestplate, Grade B High-Rank Knight's Gauntlets, Grade B High-Rank Knight's Gauntlets, Grade B High-Rank Mage's Ring Grade B, and Mid-Rank Assassin's Boots Grade C. Ha! Jinwoo stuck his tongue between his teeth as he looked at the long list on the info screen. It wasn't that long ago when it was pretty empty. That had been the case once upon a time, but now his head spun just looking at his skills and item lists. What stood out most, though, was his job. His job was Shadow Monarch. Just yesterday it had said none. And if he was honest, seeing that used to bother him every time he opened the stat window. It upset him because the word before it was Job. Hunters were seen as no better than deadbeats when there were no raids. It was hard for Jinwoo not to feel annoyed, seeing no job on his screen each time he checked. A deer that's surprised when it sees an elk will be surprised when it sees its own reflection, and Jinwoo felt a pang each time he viewed his job status. Even though he knew it didn't mean he was unemployed, it still upset him, but from this day on, that wouldn't be a problem anymore. Jinwoo laughed even when he wasn't supposed to. He realized he had been too hard on himself. If he made as much money as other hunters, he wouldn't care what people thought of him when he wasn't on raids. But that wasn't possible for him. He couldn't proudly tell others he was a hunter, because his rank was so low. When he said I'm an E-rank hunter, people who knew what that meant would compliment him for doing dangerous work, but laugh about his rank when he wasn't around. This made him feel unsure of himself whenever he looked at his stats. He had a job now, or rather, a role. Being a hunter was still his job, so it would be more accurate to say that being a shadow monarch was his role. Even though it wasn't the path I'd hoped for, still he had no regrets. He felt really happy about how things were going. If he weren't in his room, he would have called Agris and the other shadow soldiers right away. Jinwoo wanted to see just how strong his followers were. Maybe they could use all their old power from when they were alive. Probably not. But it was fun to think about. He excitedly imagined different raid scenarios in his head. He wondered what Jinhyo would think if he saw all this. Jinwoo laughed as he pictured Jinhyo standing there with his eyes wide open in surprise. Wait, what if? Could he bring back dead hunters too? Of course he hoped that wouldn't happen to anyone. Calling forth an undead warrior from someone's shadow made him feel uneasy. Still he wondered what would happen if he could get the shadow of an A or Sering hunter. The power that would bring would be amazing. If these shadow warriors were even half as strong as they were when alive, he and his army could conquer a tough dungeon by themselves. His heartbeat quickened at the thought of what could happen. Ba-dump, ba-dump, bay-dump, bay-dump. Jinwoo shook his head. Turning a person into an undead creature was something he thought was wrong. Even if he could do it, he didn't want to. Because he thought it was wrong, he might think about it only if the person who died was a mean person who had done bad things. But he didn't often get chances to fight against other hunters. Even if he did get that chance, there would still be a lot of issues. Most importantly, a human was not the same as a monster or a magical creature. Right now, he was happy with the soldiers he had. Plus he had Igris, who used to be in charge of a tough place called a dungeon. Igris was a level 7 shadow soldier, which was very strong. How powerful could he be? Jinwoo couldn't wait for the next raid to find out. He happily looked down at the window again and noticed something else. There was another title besides Wolf Assassin. Oh, right, he had gotten a second title as a reward for finishing his job change quest. Jinwoo checked the hidden title. It said the one who overcame adversity. This title was given to those who had triumphed over tough challenges. His stats would go up as he lost health 1% at a time. This was an awesome ability boost that made him stronger when his health dropped. The title Wolf Assassin gave him a 40% bonus against animal-type monsters, but it had its limits, making it hard to use sometimes. If I'm not fighting animal-type monsters, this title is almost useless. Now he got a new title with a helpful boost that worked well with his passive skill Willpower. Without wasting any time, Jinwoo changed his title. His current title was the one who overcame adversity, and one more hidden title. He could switch back if needed. Next up were his stats. He got 3 rewards for doing better than expected in the achievement. The first was moving up to a higher rank, and the second was earning a special title. The last one gave him better stats. His current stats are Strength 13-2, Stamina 9D1, Agility 111, Intelligence 70, Perception 93. He has 10 extra points to use. In the past he would have put them into Agility or Perception, but things are different now. Jinwoo spent all 10 points on Intelligence. Even after that his Intelligence was only 80 points. Stat Strength 13-2, True, Stamina 91, Agility 111, Intelligence 80, Perception 93. Available ability points 0, Physical damage reduced by 46%. His intelligence was much lower than his strength or agility. It was even less than his stamina, which he had not focused on for a while when he decided to improve his agility. Jinwoo didn't realize how important the intelligence stat was until now. He didn't know he'd be using magic. So he decided to put all his ability points into intelligence, but wouldn't change how he fought. His new skill was still for assassination. During the last fight he got a new skill called Dagger Throw. Dagger Throw is an active skill that uses 30 mana to attack by throwing a dagger. The higher the skill level, the better the accuracy and damage. As Jinwoo thought, he was still a fighter at heart. Even with new abilities or jobs, his fighting style didn't change much. His daggers remained his main weapons, while his shadow skills acted as backup, at least until his intelligence increased enough. He had strong combat skills, and an assisting army to support him. His overall plan stayed the same even after he started looking for a new job. What I didn't expect was that the shadow soldiers turned out to be more useful than he first thought. He didn't expect a boss creature to be among them. Still, it would be a waste of his experience and training to stop using his dagger skills just to focus on his new shadow abilities. And he just bought Night Killer too. If I had known I would become a magic hunter, I would have bought a magic wand, or something from the shop. But then he probably would have been overwhelmed by the knights and failed the class change mission. Now that he had checked all the changes, Jinwoo closed out the stat window. Wait, what time is it? 20 minutes flew by in no time. He scratched his head. I need to hurry up, Jinwoo thought. He gave a small smile, as stats were useful for more than just fighting magic beasts. When he focused, time seemed to slow down, or rather Jinwoo moved faster. He left the room, went to the bathroom, showered, dried off, picked an outfit, and stood in front of the mirror. It only took him 3 minutes. He could have gone even faster, but he didn't want to mess up his old apartment. His hair was still damp, but he had saved 20 minutes, so it would dry in time. Jinwoo decided it was time to go. As he walked out of the room, he noticed something and stopped. There on his desk was his house key. Before, Jinwoo would have been annoyed going back for the key. Now he just stretched out his hand in its direction. Why not use it now if not here? Ruler's hand. The key moved slowly at first, but then zoomed into his palm like a magnet pulling it. Shush, Jinwoo smiled, catching the key. Jinwoo got ready quickly and whistled as he closed the door behind him. He first went to the bank to check how much money he had made from selling essence stones. Even though he hadn't had time to visit in a while, Jinwoo remembered that Jinmyu was in charge of handling the essence stones as the squad leader. He told Jinwoo that he sold the essence stones once the raids were over each day and put the money into an account. However, he never said exactly how much money there was. He talks a lot about other things, but not about money. Jinmyu didn't show much interest in the topic. Because he grew up rich and around money, it was the farthest thing from his mind. He mostly talked about celebrities, movies, songs, and raids. You could barely call it a conversation though, because Jinmyu did almost all the talking, while Jinwoo only added a few words here and there. Now that I think about it, even though Jinmyu talked a lot, he never said anything about his family. That was interesting. It had been that way since Jinwoo could remember, starting from their first meeting. Just as Jinwoo thought this was strange, he arrived at the bank. I picked the wrong day. The ATMs were not working, so he had no other choice. Jinwoo walked into the bank, got a number, and waited for his turn to talk to a teller. Hello, said the teller, smiling brightly. She asked, how can I assist you today? Jinwoo replied, I need an updated bank statement, please. The teller smiled again, took his papers and started working on his request. While he waited, Jinwoo looked around the bank. The place was busy, even though it was just an ordinary afternoon. While he watched people around him, the teller's eyes suddenly opened wide in shock when she saw his account balance. Wow, the balance showed 148,900,001. She checked the numbers again, but it was definitely over $1,000,000,000. This wasn't money he had saved up gradually. More than 100,000,000 won had been put into his account every day for about a week. The teller thought Jinwoo was just a high school student who came to help with his mom's bank account, but now she saw him in a whole new way. Her next question was more about her own curiosity. Oh my, may I ask what you do for a living? Her face turned red, and she glanced at Jinwoo, as if embarrassed to ask such a personal question. He replied casually, I'm a hunter. Ah. She started nodding without thinking. So the rumors were true. I heard that hunters can make a lot of money. She had no idea hunters could make so much money. She felt bad about being just a regular worker. A minute ago he was just another customer, but now he seemed like someone very important. He must be a high-ranking hunter. After all, this wasn't the kind of money most hunters have. This was her first time meeting a high-ranking hunter. The exciting situation made her heart race. Her heart pounded faster. A young customer with billions in their account is super important at the bank. As a hunter, he was even more special. She switched to sales mode to impress this very important person, pulling out products from the bank counter. Our bank has just released a new product only for our VIP clients, you see. Her smile was genuine, not professional. Her eyes were fixed on Jinwoo. Oh wow. His hair was a bit messy, and he looked like he'd thrown on whatever clothes were lying around. She got a look at his day. He seemed like a very competent man who didn't have much time for this core because he was so busy. Our clients really like this product, he said. Want to try it? Jinwoo said no thank you. Oh, I see. The teller sounded disappointed. Worried that things might take too long, Jinwoo decided to leave. Thank you for your help. Have a nice day. He ignored her eyes following him as he left the bank. As soon as the door shut behind him, Guyu, Jinwoo breathed a sigh of relief. He'd noticed the way she looked at him differently, once he revealed his job as a hunter.